Liam pressed his back against the living room wall, clutching his worn-out stuffed elephant so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. The 8-year-old boy rocked gently from side to side, a motion that helped calm the storm always brewing inside his mind. His dark eyes stared at the wooden floor, avoiding the concerned looks from his parents who sat on the couch just a few feet away. Elena Rodriguez wiped her hands on her apron for the third time in 5 minutes. She had been trying to work up the courage to suggest something that terrified her more than it should. Her husband Rafael sat beside her, scrolling through his phone, but she could tell he wasn't really reading anything. They both knew what day it was, and they both knew what she wanted to ask. "Rafa," Elena whispered, glancing toward Liam to make sure he wasn't listening. "It's your birthday." Rafael looked up from his phone and gave her a tired smile. "I know, mi amor. You don't have to do anything special, we can just order pizza like always." But Elena had been thinking about this for weeks. When was the last time they had gone anywhere as a family? When was the last time they had tried to do something normal? She remembered the days before Liam's autism diagnosis, when they would go out for dinner without planning every detail, when they could walk into a restaurant without checking if it had quiet corners and dim lighting. Those days felt like a lifetime ago. Liam had always been different, even as a baby. He didn't respond to his name the way other children did. He would focus intensely on spinning toys or arranging blocks in perfect lines. When he turned 3 and still hadn't spoken a single word, Elena knew something was different. The doctors confirmed what she already felt in her heart. Liam experienced the world in a completely different way than most people. The diagnosis brought relief and terror at the same time. Relief because they finally had answers. Terror because they realized how much their world was about to change. School became a nightmare. Other children would stare when Liam covered his ears during fire drills, or when he ran to hide under the fire teacher's desk because the fluorescent lights were too bright. Teachers meant well, but they didn't understand why he couldn't just try harder to speak up or stop being so sensitive to sounds that didn't bother anyone else. The breaking point came 6 months ago at a McDonald's. Liam had been having a good day and Elena thought maybe they could handle a quick lunch out. But the moment they walked in, everything went wrong. The fryer was beeping, children were screaming in the play area. The teenager behind the counter was shouting orders to the kitchen staff. Liam had covered his ears and started crying, not the quiet tears of a sad child, but the heartbroken sobs of someone in genuine pain. Other customers started staring. Some looked sympathetic, but others seemed annoyed or uncomfortable. One man actually complained to the manager that kid was disturbing his meal. Elena scooped Liam up and rushed out to the car, where he continued crying for 20 minutes. Rafael found them there, and they sat in silence as their son slowly calmed down. That was the day they decided to stop trying. It was easier to stay home where Liam felt safe. But today was different. Today was Rafael's 40th birthday, and Elena was tired of letting fear control their lives. "There's a small place on Maple Street," she said quietly. "Betty's Diner. Mrs. Chen from next door says it's always quiet during lunch hours. Just a few tables, nothing fancy." Rafael looked at her like she had suggested they climb Mount Everest. "Elena, you remember what happened last time? That was different. This place is small, quiet, and..." She paused, looking at Liam, who was now humming softly to his elephant. "And we can't keep hiding forever. He's smart, Rafa. So smart. But he'll never learn that the world can be safe if we never show him." The truth was, Liam was incredibly bright. At home, he could solve puzzles, meant for children twice his age. He drew pictures that showed an understanding of the world that amazed Elena. He had his own way of communicating with them, pointing, gesturing, and sometimes whispering words that only they could hear. But the moment a stranger appeared, he would shut down completely. Rafael watched his son for a long moment. Liam was arranging his toy cars in a perfect line, organizing them by color and size. His concentration was absolute, and there was something beautiful about the way his mind worked. Maybe Elena was right. Maybe they had been protecting him so much that they were actually holding him back. If we go, Raphael said slowly, and it doesn't work out, we leave immediately. No trying to push through it. Elena nodded eagerly. Of course. The moment he's uncomfortable, we're out of there. They spent the next hour preparing. Elena packed Liam's comfort items, his elephant, his favorite crayons, and the small photo of their family that he liked to hold when he felt scared. Raphael looked up the diner online, checking the menu and reading reviews to make sure it was as quiet as Mrs. Chen had said. Liam, sweetheart, Elena called gently. Come here for a minute. Liam looked up but didn't move. Elena walked over and knelt beside him, speaking in the soft tone she used when she needed his full attention. Daddy's birthday is today, remember? We're going to go to a restaurant for lunch. Just for a little while. Liam's rocking increased slightly. He clutched his elephant tighter. It's a small place, Elena continued. Very quiet. And if you don't like it, we can come right home. But I think you might like it. They have chocolate milk, and you can bring your elephant. It took another 30 minutes to get ready. Liam needed time to process the change in routine. Elena packed snacks in case the food at the restaurant wasn't to his liking. Raphael brought headphones in case the noise became too much. As they drove to Betty's diner, Elena's stomach twisted with familiar anxiety. In the backseat, Liam stared out the window, his elephant pressed against his cheek. He wasn't crying or showing obvious signs of distress, which Elena took as a good sign. Look, mijo, Raphael said, pointing out the window. There's the place. See how small it is? Just a few cars in the parking lot. The diner was exactly as Mrs. Chen had described. A tiny building with faded blue shutters and a hand-painted sign. Through the windows, Elena could see only a handful of customers scattered across mismatched tables. It looked like the kind of place where time moved a little slower, where people minded their own business. As Raphael parked the car, Elena turned to look at Liam. He was still staring out the window, but his rocking had stopped. His dark eyes took in every detail of the building, processing and cataloging in the way his mind always worked. Are you ready, sweetheart? Elena asked. For just a moment, Liam's eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. He didn't nod or speak, but something in his expression told her that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to try. The glass door of Betty's diner felt heavier than it should have as Raphael pulled it open. The tiny bell above their heads chimed softly, and Elena immediately felt Liam tense beside her. She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, a silent reminder that she was right there with him. Inside, the diner was exactly what Elena had hoped for. Soft morning light filtered through checkered curtains, and only 4 tables were occupied. An elderly man sat alone reading a newspaper. A young couple shared a plate of pancakes at a corner booth. 2 construction workers quietly discussed their day over coffee. The atmosphere was calm, peaceful even. But Elena knew that what seemed calm to her might feel overwhelming to Liam. She watched as his dark eyes darted around the room, taking in every detail. The hum of the refrigerator in the back, the soft sizzle from the kitchen, the way the ceiling fan rotated slowly overhead. His mind was processing it all at once, trying to determine if this place was safe. It had taken Elena and Raphael 3 years to truly understand how their son experienced the world. In those early days after his diagnosis, they had made so many mistakes. They thought if they just exposed him to more situations, he would eventually get used to them. They didn't realize that for Liam, every sound was amplified, every light was brighter, every texture felt different. Learning to read Liam's signals had been like learning a new language. At home, he was a completely different child. He would curl up next to Elena on the couch and point to pictures and books, making soft humming sounds when he found something interesting. With Raphael, he would spend hours building elaborate structures, with blocks creating patterns that showed a mathematical mind far beyond his years. Last month, Liam had drawn a picture that left Elena speechless. It was their house, but drawn from an angle she had never seen before, as if he was looking down at it from above. Every window was in the right place. Every tree in their yard was positioned correctly. When she showed it to Raphael, they both realized that their 8-year-old son had somehow memorized their entire neighborhood from a bird's-eye view. But the moment a stranger entered their world, Liam would retreat inside himself. The mailman, grocery store clerks, even their neighbor Mrs. Chen, anyone outside their immediate family might as well have been invisible to him. He would hide behind Elena's legs or simply stare at the floor until the person left. Table 4. 3? A voice called from across the diner. Elena looked up to see their waitress approaching, a woman probably in her 40s with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in, a simple ponytail. Her name tag read Joyce. She moved slowly, not rushing toward them like so many restaurant workers did. Elena glanced down at Liam. He had spotted an empty booth in the far corner, away from the other customers. His body language told her exactly what he wanted. "Could we sit over there?" Elena asked, pointing to the corner booth. "The quiet spot?" Joyce followed her gaze and nodded understanding. "Of course, that's actually the best table in the house. Nice view of the garden out back." As they walked toward the booth, Elena noticed Liam's steps becoming smaller and more careful. This was how he moved when he was trying to make himself invisible. She knew he was fighting between curiosity about this new place and the overwhelming urge to run back to the car. Raphael slid into the booth first, then Elena, leaving Liam the spot against the wall where he would feel most protected. But instead of sitting down, Liam stood frozen beside the table, staring at the red vinyl seats. "The seats are a little cold," Elena said softly, understanding immediately, "but they'll warm up once you sit down." At home, they had learned to prepare Liam for every texture, every sensation. Cold surfaces bothered him. Rough fabrics made him uncomfortable. Even the tags in his shirts had to be cut out because they felt scratchy against his skin. Liam finally slid into the booth but immediately pulled his elephant close to his chest. Elena could see him studying everything. The way the light reflected off the tabletop, the pattern in the wallpaper, the sound of dishes clattering softly in the kitchen. From their years of experience, Elena and Raphael had developed a system. Raphael would scan the environment for potential problems while Elena focused entirely on Liam. They communicated through glances and subtle gestures, a silent conversation that had developed over years of practice. Raphael caught Elena's eye and nodded toward the kitchen. The sounds were manageable, no loud banging or sudden noises that might startle Liam. Elena looked toward the other customers. Everyone seemed relaxed and quiet. So far, so good. But then she noticed something that made her heart sink. The elderly man reading his newspaper kept glancing over at their table, not with cruelty but with obvious curiosity. He was probably wondering why an 8-year-old boy was rocking slightly and holding a stuffed animal so tightly. Elena had become an expert at reading people's expressions over the years. She could tell the difference between genuine concern and uncomfortable judgment. She could spot the people who thought Liam was just being difficult versus those who sensed something deeper was happening. The young couple at the corner booth had also noticed them. The woman whispered something to her boyfriend, who turned to look. Elena felt her chest tighten. This was always the worst part, feeling like they were on display, like Liam was some kind of puzzle for strangers to figure out. "Mama," Liam whispered, so quietly that Elena almost missed it. She looked down at him. He was staring at his hands, but she could tell he was aware of the attention they were getting. Somehow he always knew when people were watching him. "It's okay, mijo," Elena whispered back. "We're just going to have some lunch and then we'll go home." Raphael reached across the table and gently tapped the space in front of Liam. It was their signal, a way of getting Liam's attention without forcing eye contact. Liam looked up for just a moment and Raphael smiled at him. "You brought your crayons, right?" Raphael asked quietly. Liam nodded slightly. Elena had packed his favorite set of 8 crayons in her purse, along with a small pad of paper. Drawing was one of the few activities that could calm Liam down no matter where they were. Joyce appeared at their table again, moving with the same unhurried pace as before. Elena braced herself for the typical restaurant experience, a server who would try to engage Liam directly, ask him what he wanted to eat, maybe comment on his stuffed elephant in a voice too loud and too cheerful. Instead, Joyce simply set 3, Glasses of water on the table and placed them carefully within everyone's reach. "Take your time looking at the menu," she said gently. "I'll check back in a few minutes." Elena felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. This woman seemed to understand that not every child needed to be the center of attention. Liam picked up his water glass and examined it closely. He always did this with new cups or plates, studying them as if he was memorizing every detail. Elena had learned that this wasn't strange behavior. It was just how Liam made sense of new things. "The water tastes good," Raphael said encouragingly. Liam took a tiny sip and then set the glass down in exactly the same spot where Joyce had placed it. Elena smiled. Her son liked order, predictability. As long as things stayed calm and quiet, maybe they could actually make it through this meal. But she couldn't shake the feeling that they were still being watched, still being judged. She glanced around the diner again and caught the construction worker at the counter staring at Liam with a confused expression. Elena's protective instincts kicked in immediately. She was already calculating how quickly they could leave if necessary, already planning their escape route. Because if there was one thing she had learned over the years, it was that the world wasn't always ready for children like Liam. But maybe, just maybe, this little diner would be different. Joyce Wilson had been working at Betty's Diner for 12 years, and in that time, she had learned to read people the way others read books. She could spot a first date from across the room, knew when someone was having a bad day just by how they held their coffee cup, and could tell within minutes whether a customer would leave a good tip or not. But as she watched the family in the corner booth, Joyce saw something that most people would miss. The way the mother kept one hand always within reach of her son. The way the father's eyes constantly scanned the room, not with paranoia, but with the careful attention of someone who had learned to anticipate problems. And most importantly, the way the little boy held his stuffed elephant, not like a child playing with a toy, but like someone clutching a lifeline. Joyce had seen this before. 5 years ago, her sister Carmen had called her in tears. "I don't know what to do anymore, Joyce. The school says Tony needs special help, but I don't even know where to start." Her nephew Tony was 7 then, about the same age as the boy sitting in the corner booth. He would spend hours lining up his toy cars in perfect rows, getting upset if anyone moved them even slightly. Loud noises made him cover his ears and rock back and forth. New places terrified him. It had taken Carmen 2 years to get Tony properly diagnosed with autism. 2 years of fighting with teachers who said he was just being difficult, doctors who suggested he would grow out of it, and family members who thought Carmen was just making excuses for bad behavior. Joyce had watched her sister navigate that journey, learning a whole new way of understanding her child. She had been there for the meltdowns in grocery stores, the rushed exits from family gatherings, the constant worry about whether Tony was okay. Looking at the family now, Joyce recognized all the signs. The mother's practiced calm that barely hid her anxiety, the father's protective positioning, and the little boy himself so clearly intelligent but struggling with something the rest of the world couldn't see. Joyce picked up the coffee pot and made her rounds to other tables, but she kept glancing back at the corner booth. She watched as the mother carefully unpacked crayons and paper, setting them down in front of the boy without saying a word. The child examined each crayon closely before selecting a blue one and beginning to draw. 20 minutes passed before Joyce approached their table again. In her years at the diner, she had learned that timing was everything. Rush someone who needed space and they would shut down completely. But wait too long and they might think you didn't care. "How are we doing over here?" Joyce asked softly, directing her question to the parents while keeping her voice low enough not to startle their son. Elena looked up gratefully. "We're good, thank you." Still looking at the menu, Joyce noticed the boy's drawing, a detailed sketch of his stuffed elephant, complete with carefully drawn wrinkles on its trunk and shading that showed real artistic skill. "That's beautiful artwork," she said, not directly to the boy but loud enough that he could hear if he wanted to. The child's hand paused for just a moment, but he didn't look up. Joyce had learned from watching Carmen with Tony that direct attention could sometimes feel overwhelming. Instead of trying to engage the boy in conversation, She focused on making the environment as comfortable as possible. "Our cook makes excellent grilled cheese," she told Elena and Raphael. "Very simple ingredients, nothing fancy. And we have chocolate milk that comes in a regular cup, not those tall glasses that some places use." Elena's eyes widened slightly. This waitress was talking about food in a way that showed she understood some children had specific needs about texture and presentation. "Would it be possible to have the grilled cheese cut in triangles?" Elena asked carefully. "Of course," Joyce replied immediately. "And if you'd like, I can have the kitchen make sure the crusts are trimmed off." Raphael leaned forward slightly. "You have experience with children who have special needs?" Joyce smiled gently. "My nephew. He's 12 now, and he's taught our whole family so much about seeing the world differently." Elena felt tears prick at her eyes. It had been so long since someone understood without requiring explanations. So long since she didn't have to justify Liam's needs or apologize for his behavior. Joyce excused herself to check on other tables, but she made sure to walk slowly and quietly past their booth. She had noticed that the boy seemed calmer when people moved predictably, without sudden movements or loud voices. At the counter, the construction worker named Bill was finishing his lunch. He had been glancing at the corner booth throughout his meal, and Joyce could see the questions in his eyes. "Different kind of kid, huh?" Bill said quietly as Joyce refilled his coffee. Joyce set the pot down carefully. She had dealt with comments like this before. Some people were genuinely curious and just didn't know how to ask respectfully. Others were judgmental and looking for someone to agree with their assumptions. "He's a smart little boy," Joyce said, simply. "Some children just experience the world differently than we do." Bill nodded slowly. "My brother-in-law's kid is like that. Always thought the boy was just being stubborn until we learned about that autism thing. Makes more sense now." Joyce was relieved. Bill wasn't being mean-spirited, just trying to understand. Back at the corner booth, Liam had finished his elephant, drawing and started on a new picture. This one showed the diner from the outside, complete with the blue shutters and the hand-painted sign. But what amazed Elena was the detail. He had somehow memorized the exact number of windows, and even drawn the small flower pot by the door. "He notices everything," Elena whispered to Raphael. Raphael watched his son work, marveling at the precision of each line. At home, Liam's drawings covered their refrigerator and walls. He drew their house, their car, the view from his bedroom, window. But he had never drawn anything from a place they had just arrived at. This was new. When Joyce returned to take their order, she knelt down beside the booth so she would be at eye level with the family instead of looking down at them. It was a small gesture, but one that showed respect and understanding. "We'd like 2 grilled cheese sandwiches," Elena said, cut in triangles, crusts removed on one of them. "And chocolate milk," Raphael added. Joyce wrote everything down carefully. "Would you like some apple slices on the side? They're fresh, and some children like having something crunchy with their sandwich." Elena looked at Liam, who was now drawing what appeared to be the interior of the diner. "What do you think, sweetheart? Apple slices?" Liam didn't respond verbally, but he drew a small apple in the corner of his paper. Joyce smiled. "I'll take that as a yes." As she walked away, Joyce felt hopeful. This family was giving their son a chance to experience the world, and despite his obvious challenges, the little boy was engaging with his environment in his own unique way. She had seen Tony make similar progress over the years, small steps, that led to bigger breakthroughs. In the kitchen, Joyce spoke quietly to the cook about preparing the meal with extra care. She wanted everything to be perfect for this family. She remembered how much it had meant to Carmen when people took Tony's needs seriously, when they didn't treat his differences like problems to be fixed. When she brought their food to the table, Joyce set each plate down gently and made sure nothing was out of place. The boy looked up for just a moment when she set his chocolate milk down, and she caught a glimpse of intelligent dark eyes that seemed to be studying her face. "Enjoy your meal," Joyce said softly, and for the first time since they had arrived, she thought she saw the hint of a smile on the little boy's face. The grilled cheese sandwich sat on Liam's plate, cut into perfect triangles just as Elena had requested. Steam rose gently from the golden brown bread, and the melted cheese peeked out from the edges in exactly the way Liam liked. For the first time since they had arrived at Betty's diner, Elena felt like maybe they could actually finish a meal in public. Liam picked up one triangle and examined it carefully, the way he did with all new food. Elena held her breath, knowing that if the texture wasn't right or if the cheese was too stretchy, their peaceful lunch could end in seconds. But Liam took a small bite, then another. Elena exchanged a quick glance with Raphael, who gave her the tiniest smile of relief. For 20 minutes, everything was perfect. Liam ate half his sandwich and most of his apple slices. He had drawn 3 more pictures, one of Joyce carrying plates, one of the ceiling fan spinning overhead, and one of his parents sitting across from him. Each drawing was detailed and precise, showing the world through his unique perspective. Other customers had come and gone, but the diner remained quiet and peaceful. The elderly man with the newspaper had left a $1 tip under his coffee cup and nodded kindly to their family on his way out. The young couple had finished their pancakes without once staring in their direction. Even the construction workers had paid their bill and headed back to work without incident. Elena was just starting to believe they might actually make it through their first successful restaurant visit when Joyce appeared at their table with a fresh glass of chocolate milk. "I thought you might like a refill," Joyce said gently, setting the glass down within Liam's reach. This was new. At home, Liam always had the same cup for chocolate milk, a blue plastic one with a lid that prevented spills. This glass was taller, different from what he was used to. Elena watched nervously as Liam studied the new cup, comparing it to his original one. Joyce noticed his hesitation. "The milk is exactly the same," she said softly. "Same chocolate, same temperature, just a different cup." Something about Joyce's voice seemed to reassure Liam. He reached for the glass, wrapping both small hands around it carefully. Elena relaxed slightly. He was adapting, showing the kind of flexibility that his therapists always said was a positive sign. But Elena's relief was short-lived. As Liam lifted the glass to take a sip, his elbow bumped against his latest drawing. The paper shifted slightly, not falling off the table but moving just enough to change the careful arrangement he had created. For most children, this would be nothing. For Liam, it was like watching his perfectly ordered world suddenly tilt sideways. His grip on the glass tightened reflexively, and that's when everything went wrong. The chocolate milk splashed across the table in a brown wave, soaking his drawings and spreading toward Elena's plate. The glass rolled toward the edge of the table and Elena lunged forward to catch it, but not before half the milk had pooled on the vinyl seat beside Liam. "Oh no, oh no, oh no," Liam whispered, his voice rising in panic. Elena's heart sank. This was exactly what she had been afraid of. In Liam's mind, making a mess wasn't just an accident. It was proof that he couldn't handle being in the outside world. Proof that he was different and wrong. "It's okay, sweetheart," Elena said quickly, reaching for napkins. "It's just milk. We can clean it up." But Liam was already spiraling into distress. His breathing became rapid and shallow. He pressed himself back against the wall of the booth, pulling his knees up to his chest. The stuffed elephant fell to the floor, and somehow that made everything worse. I'm sorry, he repeated, rocking back and forth. The few remaining customers in the diner turned to look, and Elena felt the familiar burn of embarrassment mixed with fierce protectiveness. Raphael slid out of the booth to retrieve the elephant, while Elena tried to reach across the spilled milk to comfort their son. "You didn't do anything wrong, Liam," Raphael said firmly. "Accidents happen to everyone." But Liam wasn't listening. He was lost in his own world of overwhelming emotion, unable to process comfort or logic. Elena had seen this before, and she knew it could take an hour or more for him to calm down. They would have to leave, go home, and probably wouldn't try going out again for months. That's when Joyce appeared beside their table, moving with calm purpose. "Hey now," she said gently, her voice somehow cutting through Liam's distress. "This is no big deal at all. You know what? I spill things every single day. Just yesterday I dropped a whole tray of dishes, made a terrible crash." Liam's rocking slowed slightly. though he kept his face buried against his knees. Joyce knelt down beside the booth, making herself smaller and less intimidating. "Would it be okay if I cleaned this up?" she asked Elena and Raphael. "Sometimes, when we clean up together, it helps us feel better." Elena nodded, tears in her eyes. She was amazed that this woman was treating their son's meltdown not as a problem to be solved, but as a moment that needed understanding. Joyce used a handful of napkins to carefully soak up the spilled milk, moving slowly and quietly. She didn't rush or make a big production of it, she just cleaned, humming softly under her breath. "You know what, Liam?" Joyce said as she worked. "I have a nephew who draws pictures just like you do. Beautiful, detailed pictures. He drew me a picture of my cat once, and it was so good I framed it and put it on my wall at home." Liam lifted his head slightly, looking at Joyce for the first time since the spill. "Your pictures are really special," Joyce continued. "Even with a little chocolate milk on them, I can still see how talented you are." She held up one of his drawings, the one of the diner's exterior. The corner was damp, but the details were still clear. "I've worked here for 12 years, and I've never seen anyone draw this building so perfectly," Joyce said with genuine admiration. Liam wiped his nose with the back of his hand and looked at his drawing. The crisis was passing, but Elena could see he was still fragile, still teetering on the edge of another wave of upset. Joyce seemed to sense this too. She looked at Elena and Raphael, asking permission with her eyes. When they both nodded, Joyce turned back to Liam. "Sometimes when I feel upset, a hug helps me feel better," she said gently. "Would a hug help you feel better too?" It was the question that could change everything or make everything worse. Elena held her breath. For a long moment, Liam just stared at Joyce. Here was a stranger, someone he had known for less than an hour. Every instinct should have told him to retreat, to hide, to wait for his parents to make the scary feeling go away. But something about Joyce felt different. Maybe it was the way she had knelt down to his level. Maybe it was how she had cleaned up his mess without making him feel ashamed. Maybe it was the quiet confidence in her voice that told him she wouldn't hurt him. Slowly, carefully, Liam slid toward the edge of the booth seat. Joyce opened her arms in invitation, letting him make the choice. And incredibly, amazingly, Liam stepped into her embrace. The hug lasted only a few seconds, but in that moment, something fundamental changed. For the first time in over a year, Liam had chosen to trust a stranger. He had let someone outside, his family, offer him comfort. When they separated, Liam looked directly into Joyce's kind eyes. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice so quiet it was barely audible. But everyone heard it. Elena's tears started flowing freely. Raphael put his hand over his heart, and Joyce smiled the biggest, warmest smile imaginable. "You're very welcome, sweetheart," she said. "Very welcome indeed." The silence that followed Liam's whispered "thank you" felt sacred. Elena sat frozen in the booth, afraid to move or speak, afraid to break whatever magic had just happened. Raphael's eyes were wet with tears he was trying not to shed, and Joyce remained kneeling beside their table, her face glowing with quiet joy. Liam stepped back from the hug and looked around the diner as if seeing it for the first time. The spilled milk was cleaned up. His drawings were drying on the table. His elephant was safely back in his arms. And most importantly, the world hadn't ended because he had made a mistake. "Your pictures are still beautiful," Joyce said gently, pointing to his artwork. "Would you like some new paper to draw on?" Instead of answering with words, Liam nodded. It was small, almost invisible, but it was a response to a direct question from a stranger. Elena had to bite her lip to keep from crying harder. Joyce brought fresh paper and made sure Liam's crayons were arranged exactly as they had been before. She understood that order and routine weren't just preferences for him. They were necessities that helped him feel safe in an unpredictable world. As Liam began drawing again, Elena found her voice. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered to Joyce. "We haven't been able to eat anywhere in 6 months. He hasn't spoken to anyone outside our family in over a year." Joyce squeezed Elena's shoulder gently. "Every child has their own timeline," she said. "My nephew Tony didn't speak to strangers until he was 9. Now he talks to everyone about dinosaurs whether they want to hear it or not. Raphael laughed, through his tears. Liam loves dinosaurs too. He has every dinosaur book in the library memorized. Smart boy, Joyce said, watching as Liam carefully selected a green crayon. The smart ones sometimes take longer to figure out how to connect with the world. But when they do, they have so much to offer. Over the next hour, something remarkable happened. Liam finished his new drawing, a detailed picture of Joyce carrying a tray of food. When he was done, he carefully tore the page from his pad and pushed it across the table toward her. "This is for you," he said quietly. Joyce accepted the drawing with the reverence of someone receiving a precious gift. "This is the most beautiful picture anyone has ever drawn of me," she said. And Liam's face lit up with the first real smile Elena had seen from him all day. They finished their meal in comfortable peace. Liam ate his remaining apple slices and even tried a bite of Elena's sandwich when she offered it. He asked Joyce for extra napkins, speaking directly to her in a voice only slightly above a whisper. Each interaction was small, but to Elena and Raphael they felt like miracles. When it came time to pay the bill, Joyce waved away Raphael's offer of a large tip. "The pleasure was all mine," she said. "I hope we'll see you folks again soon." Elena looked at Liam, who was gathering his crayons and carefully tucking his elephant under his arm. "Would you like to come back here sometime?" she asked him. Liam looked around the diner one more time, then up at Joyce. "Yes," he said simply. That was the beginning of everything changing. They returned to Betty's diner the following week and the week after that. Each visit, Liam became a little more comfortable, a little more willing to engage with the world outside his family. Joyce always greeted him the same way, with gentle warmth that never demanded more than he was ready to give. On their third visit, Liam asked Joyce about her nephew Tony. She told him stories about Tony's dinosaur collection, and Liam listened with rapt attention. By their fourth visit, Liam was sharing his own dinosaur facts, speaking in full sentences to someone who wasn't Elena or Raphael. "Did you know," Liam told Joyce one afternoon, "that the T-Rex had arms that were 3 feet long but could lift 400 pounds each?" Joyce's eyes widened with genuine interest. "I did not know that. That's amazing. You must read a lot about dinosaurs." "Read everything," Liam said matter-of-factly, and Elena had to smile at the pride in his voice. The transformation wasn't instant or complete. Liam still had difficult days. Loud noises could still overwhelm him. New situations could still cause anxiety. But he had learned something crucial, that the world contained people who would accept him exactly as he was. Other customers at the diner began to recognize them. Bill, the construction worker, started nodding hello when they arrived. Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who came in every Tuesday for pie, began complimenting Liam's drawings. The young couple who had been there on their first visit returned one day with their own little boy, and Liam actually waved at the toddler from across the room. Elena watched these interactions with wonder. Her son was building connections, creating a small community of people who knew him and cared about him. It was everything she had hoped for but never dared to believe possible. 3 months after their first visit, something extraordinary happened. Elena and Raphael were running late for their usual lunch date because of a doctor's appointment. When they finally arrived at Betty's diner, they found Liam already at their regular table, the corner booth, with Joyce sitting across from him. "Mama! Daddy!" Liam called out when he saw them, his voice clear and confident. "Joyce is teaching me how to fold napkins like flowers." Elena's heart nearly stopped. Her son had spoken to her in public, in front of other people, with excitement in his voice. He wasn't hiding or whispering or trying to make himself invisible. "I hope you don't mind," Joyce said, standing up as they approached. "Liam got here a few minutes ago and seemed comfortable staying while you parked the car. We've been having a great conversation about origami." Elena looked at her son, who was proudly displaying a napkin folded into the shape of a lotus flower. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have been able to stay in a restaurant for 5 minutes without her by his side. Now he was having conversations with Joyce about art and teaching her about his interests. "Look what I made for you, Mama," Liam said, holding up another napkin flower. "Joyce showed me how, but I made it myself." That night, Elena sat at her kitchen table looking through Liam's drawings from their many visits to the diner. There were dozens of them now, pictures of Joyce, other customers, the building, the food, the view out the window. Each one showed his world expanding, his confidence growing. The most recent drawing was different from all the others. It showed their family at the corner booth, but Joyce was sitting with them, and all four figures were smiling. At the bottom, in Liam's careful handwriting, were the words, "My friends." Raphael found her there, tears streaming down her face as she stared at the drawing. "What is it, mi amor?" he asked, sitting beside her. Elena held up the picture. "Look at this. Look at what he wrote." Raphael studied the drawing and felt his own eyes fill with tears. In all their years of struggle, through all the therapy sessions and difficult days and moments of despair, they had never dared to hope that Liam would consider someone outside their family a friend. 1 year later, Joyce kept that drawing taped to the window of Betty's diner, right next to the cash register where everyone could see it. Regular customers knew the story behind it, and new visitors often asked about the talented young artist who had created it. When they asked, Joyce would smile and tell them about a brave little boy who taught everyone around him that friendship comes in many forms, that kindness can transform lives, and that sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when we least expect them. And every Tuesday at noon, Liam would walk into Betty's diner with his parents, wave hello to Joyce and the other customers, and sit down at his favorite booth to share stories about dinosaurs, school, and the wonderful complicated world he was learning to navigate one drawing at a time.